You know, as I start to create this video, I look at my ZV-1, which really was the introduction for me to capturing photos of both birds and insects, bees particularly. And when we talk about macro photography, it can be challenging for sure. But once you introduce moving subjects, moving insects into the equation, it becomes next level. But bees are mission impossible, but they're also incredibly beautiful subjects with over 4,000 varieties in North America alone. I wonder how many varieties there are in the world. Incredible. And after spending hours and hours photographing bees, I've discovered several secrets that make the process just a little bit easier. It's still pretty challenging. And I'll also mention that these tips can really be applied to any insects at all. And for me, it's always two elements. If I get these things right, I'll walk away with a good photo, even if I screw up the camera settings, ISO or shutter speed. And those two things are light and composition. For example, this particular photo was shot with an old vintage lens. It's really not that sharp, even though I did nail the focus. And yet I find this photo to be beautiful because of the lighting and the composition. And by the way, this photo was taken with natural light. I didn't have a flash, and these other photos were used with a flash. So it really doesn't matter, and we're not talking about a flash when I talk about light and composition. And when I think about composition, there are several things that are non-negotiable. Number one, the eyes have to be visible and in focus. And I'm looking for really colorful photos. This is summertime. I want to capture all that beautiful color. And I'm looking for a clean, blurry background. Think bokeh. And the foreground element matters as well. That's what's in front of the subject, and I love the blades of grass in this particular photo. Now, flash can be something that's really helpful, and most of the time I shoot with flash. But this photo is not shot with flash, and that opened up all kinds of possibility with camera settings, typically using burst mode, where you can just fire off a bunch of photos by simply holding down the shutter button. And here's the first secret: focusing and finding the right flowers. Find the right flowers and your photos will benefit in three distinct and different ways. Number one, you'll capture more photos with pleasing blurry backgrounds, which is really important in a great macro photo. Number two, you'll reduce the amount of unwanted shadows, which by the way can really be challenging and will negatively impact your photos. And item number three is when you find the right photo, you're going to be far more likely, it really dramatically improves the likelihood that you do come away with a great photo when we think of composition. So what exactly is the right type of flower? Well, it's any type of flower that basically has one stem and a flower at the top of that stem. Now, this shape creates a base for the subject to land upon, to grab the pollen from it, and it also creates a very symmetrical image and a beautiful composition. Item number two is the accessibility of bees when you go out and photograph. Now, within a short drive, you can probably find a nature center with lots of flowers and thus lots of interesting insects to photograph. Now, my nature center actually has what they call a bee hotel. It's a hive, and the area has everything they need to survive. It's got water, flowers, and of course the hive. Now obviously there's the issue of getting stung. For me personally, I've never been stung at all, and interestingly only female bees have a stinger, and as long as I'm chill and relaxed, so are the bees. It's really kind of a calming and beautiful experience actually. And if you're lucky like me, you'll be able to find suitable flowers just steps from your front door, and you may just be surprised at what you're able to find. This one rose bush, for example, has been home to bees, wasps, ladybugs, flies, dragonflies, jumping spiders, and these creepy ambush bugs. And secret number 3 is some of these species are actually very agreeable and easier to photograph rather than, say, something like a bee, which is really mission impossible. A bee is very challenging. They move so very quickly, and I'm not even talking about when they're flying, just on the flower alone. Yet a wasp, what I found is wasps move actually pretty slow, and they make for great subjects, and they have these incredibly interesting and beautiful eyes. A wasp is a great subject for a macro photo. And here's a tip: spend some time, sit down, relax, let go of the distractions of day-to-day life, and you'll find you really kind of find yourself in this kind of tranquil state. It's a really nice way to get away from the distractions of life, and you may just find you start noticing a lot more than you had anticipated. And lastly, I've been kind of beating my own drum, trying different lenses and combinations to get up close and personal. One of the things you'll hear is, well, you need to have a magnification ratio of 1:1. Any true macro lens will reproduce the subject at a 1:1 magnification, which is beautiful. You get super close up, but I'm more interested in the overall composition, the look of the subject, the look of the photo, and I've been coming up with these interesting lens combinations, like a 35mm prime lens, super sharp, and an extension tube gives you this look here. Yeah, the subject is up close, it's nearly 1:1 or is, and at the same time it's wide angle. That's a little different than you typically see with a, say, 90mm macro lens. And lately I've been exploring vintage lenses like the Helios 422. And while this lens is not nearly as sharp as the lenses available today, it offers this unique artistic look that I just love, namely swirly bokeh, as you can see in this video clip and these photos. I hope to take a really cool close-up photo of a bee with some of that swirly bokeh. We'll see if I'm able to pull it off this summer. Let's talk deeply about camera settings, because these will really allow you to capture detailed photos that you're gonna just love. And the video on the screen right now is gonna break down exactly the very best camera settings, not just for macro, but for those people that are just getting started or diving a bit deeper in macro. I'll see you on that video.